just, I guess the most rewarding was the very first election. It was a very hard fought. When I first ran back then, I had to take a leave of absence from the Lenore City Police Department to run, and so that kind of made me unemployed. And but it did make me unemployed for about 8 months. And you may or may not know all this, but and then within a month of me announcing, Suzanne, my wife, worked for the city sheriff, and he let her go, fired her, because I was running against him.
Yeah.
And so we were both unemployed, and it all turned out. I mean, it was just another blessing, you know.
Another blessing about that is that Mom got to see that,
Yes.
because she passed away the next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't really get to that, but Uncle Jim and Aunt Thelma Johnson, who had the Johnson's nursing home in Lenore City. Now, then he went to Baptist nursing home and Trinity, and it's not there anymore. But they were very kind, and they paid our house payment, a little extra grocery money, light bill for 8 months.
See, I didn't know that.
You know, we could have made it, you know,
Right.
without that.
Yeah.
And we were able to win. Actually, I gave Suzanne her job back that she had. Some people, you know, have kind of criticized that, some, not many, about nepotism of sorts. But she was there before I was there,
Yeah.
you know, at the sheriff's office. She got to retire before me. So and then getting sworn in, I've got the picture in my office, swearing in, and Mama standing right beside me.
Good deal. Good deal. What was the most rewarding part for you, bud?
Well, I think that you know, an old mentor of mine once said, the sweetest sound I ever heard was the sound of a baby's cry moments after they were too sick to make a whimper. So the best part for me was seeing those times when kids were very sick and snapped back. An old professor also once told me the kids will get better in spite of you. And I learned that for sure. They're very resilient. But just going through the process of seeing some very sick kids get better. That I won't name any specific
Sure.
time, but just in general.
Right.
And just having the opportunity to come back home and practice medicine is just a blessing.
If you want to answer this, you can. If you don't, it's fine. We can cut it. But what was the toughest part of your job?
Well, obviously, public perception is huge, and you've got to. I've always tried to, you know, my slogan, what I've always lived by, basically, is to treat people how you want to be treated, the golden rule, and I've always tried to impress that upon every officer that I've hired. You know, over the years. Not everybody has. I'll have to say that the majority of everybody that I've hired, and there've been many come and go, but they've been able to do that, and I hear feedback from that. But that's some of the hardest stuff. You've got to and the way the public perception is today is quite difficult. So I guess today is harder than the very beginning in trying to sell yourself, sell as it, not just me, but all law enforcement to have a different perception to a positive one, because it's just a lot of negativity now, and there are some it's just there's bad apples in every profession.
Sure.
There's bad apples in Bud's profession. There's bad apples in the
Any
any
profession.
profession. I mean, that's true. So you can't judge everybody by that. In any profession, you can't judge everybody by that one bad apple. So, and then of course, you never want to lose an officer.
I'm sure that probably would be the most difficult to go through. Even though you are currently sheriff, that will end here in a few months, right?
Right.
So what do you look forward to in your retirement?
Well, as you've noticed, I've been kind of looking at my phone every now and then. That I don't know about Bud, but and he's had his phone on his whole life, I'd turn that thing off, at sometime and not have to worry about calling back and getting so-and-so called back in time, checking emails, and it's unbelievable, nowadays, all the emails that you get, and it's hard to respond to all of them.
So now you won't have to.
I won't have to.
What was the most difficult thing about your job?
Well, I just said the best thing was when I saw kids who were very sick get better, and most of that time it didn't have anything to do with me. It had to do with God and just kids, but and thank goodness it few and far between, but some of those kids didn't get better. That's the toughest part.
Sure.
That's the toughest part.
Yeah.
Few, not many over the years, but a few.
You guys both were in your career for a long time. I was too. But how has law enforcement changed from the beginning to now?
From the beginning, when I began,
Yes, your beginning.
well, it's like any profession. There's so many modernization type things. For one thing, body cameras and in-car cameras and things. That's originally a lot of the deputies and even myself was a little reluctant to say, hey, it's just a little much. But today, right now, I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened. It keeps everybody on their toes, our deputies, and I have refuted a lot of complaints because of those cameras. When some people will call in and say, hey, I was treated like a dog on the side of the road, they talked to me like this, and we'll go back and review the cameras, and that never happened. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it may have happened, but very, very few times did the deputies talk to anybody like a dog. And if that did happen, then they've suffered the consequences. And training is another huge, from the beginning to now, just a much better and more training.
Same question here.
Same question.
I would say technology, a big part of it. Big change. I practiced for 40 years. Big change in technology, new medications. The things that I saw in my early years where you would have to put kids in the hospital for, back in my early years. Didn't have, almost never, those same illnesses almost never end up in the hospital now because of new technology and particularly new techniques and new medications, and particularly vaccines. You know, when I started my practice, I knew mentors of mine who were maybe less than 10 years older than me, who at that time, or who prior to that, had seen cases of polio like I saw strep throat. Cases of certain type of bacterial meningitis when I started practice was awful in the United States. And kids who got bacterial meningitis one particular time would, I don't care how good a job you did or how quick you caught it or how aggressively you treated it, 100% of those kids had some negative sequela of some sort. I'll just pick out one particular vaccine. I started my practice in 1980. I saw in Loudon, Tennessee, I saw 103 cases of that particular type of bacterial meningitis in my particular practice, just here in this small community. And you can imagine how many would be across the country. 103 in 10 years. Vaccine came out in 1990. The next 30 years of my practice, I saw zero.
Wow.
Zero. So vaccines is a big thing, and I've seen it in my career in that particular thing.